Most people over 60 are told the same thing about blood sugar. Just cut back on the sugar and watch your portions. It sounds sensible. It sounds enough. But here is what nobody tells you. The very same meal can spike your blood sugar or barely move it, depending on nothing more than the order you eat it in. In careful studies, taking the exact same meal and simply eating the carbohydrate last instead of first lowered the blood sugar spike that followed by roughly a third. Same food, same amount, same calories. Only the order was different. Today, I am going to give you 5 ways to change the order and timing of your meals so your blood sugar stays flat and steady. And I will explain the one move that does more than all the others combined. The number 1 move on this list is something almost nobody talks about, and it is the single most powerful of them all. Stay with me until the end, because that one can change how steady you feel after every meal for the rest of your life. Think about your last checkup. You had about 12 minutes. Your doctor looked at your numbers, glanced at your pills, and maybe adjusted a dose. There is almost never time to talk about how you actually eat a meal. If food comes up at all, it is one line: cut the sugar. Nobody has time to explain that the order of your plate can matter as much as what is on it. I am not here to sell you a supplement or a gadget. This channel exists to give you the science a 12-minute appointment never has time to cover. There is nothing to buy in this video and nothing to give up either. Every move I show you tonight uses the exact food you already eat. Because these blood sugar spikes are not just a number. Every sharp rise is followed by a crash, and that crash is the shaky, foggy, exhausted feeling an hour after lunch. Over the years, those same spikes damage your nerves, your eyes, and your balance, the very things that keep you independent. So before we start, tell me 2 things in the comments: your age and your morning fasting blood sugar number, if you know it. Here's the one idea that unlocks all 5 moves. Your blood sugar does not care only about what you eat, it cares just as much about how fast the glucose arrives. And the order of your plate decides that speed. Carbohydrate first means a flood. Fiber and protein first means a trickle. Picture a highway on ramp with a metering light, the kind that lets cars on just a few at a time. When you eat carbohydrate first on an empty stomach, it is every car flooring it onto the motorway at once, and a jam every single time. When you eat your fiber and protein first, they act like that metering light, releasing the glucose onto the road slowly, a few cars at a time. Same cars, same road, but no jam. Please do not skip this section. It is the key to everything that follows. If this is already making sense to you, tap the like button so more seniors can find it. It is the only thing I will ask of you until the very end. The 5th move is an acidic starter, taken right before a meal built around carbohydrate. A splash of ordinary vinegar in a glass of water, or a good squeeze of lemon. Here is why a little acid changes so much. Acid slows the enzyme in your gut that turns starch into sugar, so the same bread or potato releases its glucose more gently. It also slows how fast your stomach empties into your intestine. Think of it as dropping sand into a fast machine to gear it down. The machine still runs, it just runs slower and smoother. This has been tested many times. A tablespoon or 2 of vinegar before a starchy meal has repeatedly lowered the blood sugar spike that follows. So here is how to use it. Mix 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinegar into a full glass of water and drink it in the 10 minutes before a meal heavy in bread, rice, pasta, or potato. Any vinegar works, though apple cider is popular for the taste. If vinegar is too sharp, a big squeeze of lemon or lime in water does a gentler version of the same job. Always dilute it well in a full glass and sip it through a straw if you can. The mistake people make is drinking it neat, which can harm tooth enamel and the throat. If you have acid reflux, heartburn, or a history of ulcers, skip the vinegar entirely, because acid on acid is the wrong move for you, and lemon water is gentler. Never sip it undiluted and rinse with plain water afterwards to protect your teeth. If you take a medicine that must be timed with food, keep your usual timing. And if it bothers your stomach at all, simply stop. Pair the acidic starter with the vegetables we will get to shortly, because acid and fiber slow the spike through 2 different doors at once. One prepares the gut, the other lines it. Together, they beat either one alone. And keep the number 1 move in mind as we go, the order of the meal itself, because it is the one that changes everything. But a starter is only the opening move. It costs nothing and takes nothing off your plate. Our next habit is not about what you eat at all, but about what you do in the 10 minutes after you finish. The 4th move is a short walk, taken soon after you eat. Not a hike, just 10 minutes of easy strolling. Here is why it works so well. When you walk, your leg muscles pull sugar straight out of your blood to burn as fuel, and they do it without needing any insulin at all. So the glucose from your meal goes into your working muscles instead of piling up in your bloodstream. Picture your muscles as a sponge that only opens up when you move. Sit still, and the sponge stays shut, and the sugar has nowhere to go. This is very well established. Even 10 to 15 minutes of gentle walking after a meal has been shown to noticeably lower the blood sugar that follows. So here's how to use it. Within 30 minutes of finishing a meal, walk gently for 10 to 15 minutes, even just around the house or the garden. The timing matters more than the speed because that is exactly when the glucose is rising. Do it after your largest meal at the very least, and after every meal if you can manage it. Do not push into a brisk or breathless pace because easy really is enough. The mistake people make is sitting straight down in the armchair, which is the exact moment the sugar climbs highest. Hold a rail or use a stick if your balance is uncertain, and walk somewhere flat and familiar. If you feel dizzy, weak, or breathless, stop and sit down at once. If you take insulin or a glucose-lowering pill, know that walking can lower your sugar further. So ask your doctor about timing and carry something sweet just in case. And never walk in a way that feels unsafe, because a fall undoes everything. Pair your walk with a daily anchor, like clearing the table or letting the dog out. Tying it to something you already do after dinner is how it actually happens. A walk you have to remember is a walk you will skip, but movement handles the sugar after it arrives. Everything so far has been damage control, catching the glucose once it is already loose. Our next 3 moves stop the spike before it ever starts, beginning with how fast you eat. The third move is simply to slow the whole meal down. Stretch it to at least 20 minutes and put your fork down between bites. Here is why speed matters so much. When you eat fast, a large load of glucose hits your blood all at once, and your body cannot keep up. Eat that same food slowly, and the same glucose arrives spread out in a gentle wave instead of a flood. Think of pouring water through a funnel. Tip the jug too fast and it overflows the top. Pour it steadily and every drop goes through. This is well documented. Eating the identical meal more slowly produces a lower, flatter blood sugar rise, meal after meal. So here is how to use it. Set a soft goal of 20 minutes for a main meal and put your fork or spoon down completely between each mouthful. Chew each bite well, which both slows you down and helps digestion. Sit at a table, not in front of the television, because distraction makes you eat faster without noticing. Sip water through the meal to keep your pace steady. The mistake people make is eating standing up or on the move, which is the fastest eating of all. If you eat quickly because of dentures or dental pain, softer foods let you slow down in comfort, so choose those. If a dry mouth makes eating hard, small sips of water between bites help a great deal. Take any medicine that must be taken with food at its usual point in the meal. And never rush a meal because someone is waiting, because your health comes first. Pair slow eating with good company or the radio, something pleasant that naturally stretches the meal out. A relaxed meal is a slow meal, and a slow meal is a flatter blood sugar curve. Enjoyment and control point in the very same direction here. Remember, the champion is still coming. The order of the plate itself, the single most powerful move of all. Everything so far has been building toward it, but even slow eating cannot undo a plate attacked in the wrong order. Pace helps, but position helps more. Our next move is about giving your gut a head start before the main meal even begins. The second move is the preload, a small protein and fiber starter, eaten 10 to 15 minutes before your main meal. A boiled egg, a handful of nuts, or a few spoonfuls of yogurt. Here's the clever part. Eating a little protein and fiber first tells your gut to slow down, and it releases hormones that steady your blood sugar, so the carbohydrate that follows lands on a calm, prepared system. It is like sending a scout ahead to slow the traffic before the main convoy arrives. By the time the carbohydrate turns up, the road is already metered. That head start can last a full 10 or 15 minutes, long enough to blunt the wave that follows. This has been shown clearly in careful studies. A small protein starter before a meal can meaningfully lower the spike from the carbohydrate that comes after. So here is how to use it. 10 to 15 minutes before your main meal, eat a small starter of mostly protein and fiber, around 100 to 150 calories. A boiled egg, a small handful of almonds, a few spoonfuls of plain Greek yogurt, or a few baby carrots all work well. Keep it small because this is a primer and not a first course. The mistake people make is making the preload sugary, like a piece of fruit on its own, which defeats the entire purpose. Keep it savory and simple. If your appetite is small, remember this starter counts toward the meal, so eat a little less at the table to match. If you have been told to watch your portions or your weight, keep the preload to the smaller end. If you take insulin time to your meals, ask your doctor how a preload fits your schedule, and choose soft options like yogurt if chewing nuts is hard for you. Pair your preload with the acidic starter from earlier, taken together in that same 10-minute window. The acid, the protein, and the fiber all reach your gut before the carbohydrate does. 3 quiet defenses, all in place before the spike can even begin. But the preload is only a warm-up for the main event. It is the move the whole video has been building toward. The number one move is the order of the meal itself, and it is the single most powerful thing on this entire list. The number one move is the order of the meal on your plate. Vegetables and fiber first, protein and fat next, and the starch and sugar last. The same food, the same amount, in a deliberate sequence. Here is why it sits at the very top. When starch and sugar go in first, on an empty stomach, they turn to glucose almost instantly and flood your blood in one great surge. But when you eat your vegetables and fiber first, that fiber forms a soft mesh along the wall of your gut. Then your protein and fat tell your stomach to slow right down and empty gently. So by the time the starch finally arrives, it has to pass through that mesh and out of a slowed stomach, and its sugar seeps in gradually instead of all at once. Think again of that highway on ramp with the metering light. Carbohydrate first is every car flooring it onto the motorway together, and a jam every time. Fiber and protein first is the metering light, releasing the glucose onto the road just a few cars at a time. This is the finding at the very heart of the whole video. In careful studies, eating the exact same meal with the carbohydrate last, instead of first, lowered the blood sugar spike by roughly 1/3. And it did so with no change at all to the food, only to the order. So here is how to use it, and it is the fullest plan on this list. At every main meal, physically eat in 3 waves. First, spend a few minutes on your vegetables or salad or a broth-based soup. Second, move to your protein and your fats, the meat, fish, eggs, cheese, or beans. Third, and only third, eat your starch and anything sweet, the bread, potato, rice, pasta, or dessert. Leave at least a few minutes between the vegetables and the starch because that gap is where much of the magic happens. If your food is all mixed together, like a stew, simply eat a side of vegetables first, then the mixed dish. Build the habit at 1 meal a day until it feels natural, then spread it to the rest. Sip water through the meal rather than a sugary drink, because a sweet drink first is the same mistake as bread first. The mistake almost everyone makes is starting with the bread basket or the potatoes, the very worst possible opening. This move needs no special food, no extra cost, and nothing you do not already eat, which is why it suits every kitchen and every budget. If you have diabetes, this is one of the safest and most powerful habits you can add, but keep monitoring your sugar as you normally would. If you take insulin or a glucose-lowering pill, this can bring your numbers down. So tell your doctor before you change anything about your medication. If chewing raw vegetables is hard, cooked or soft vegetables at the start work just as well. Sit upright at a table so the sequence is easy to follow. And if a mixed plate makes ordering hard, just remember one rule. Whatever is sweetest or starchiest goes last. Pair the order with everything that came before it. The acid and the preload go in the 10 minutes before, the vegetables open the meal, the starch comes last, and a short walk finishes it off. You will not feel each move working on its own, but stacked in order, they flatten the curve you once felt as an afternoon slump. Stacked together, these turn a blood sugar mountain into a gentle, easy hill. So here's the payoff I promised you at the very start. You do not have to give up the potato, the bread, or even the pudding. You simply move them to the end of the meal, behind the vegetables and the protein, and let the order do the work for you. This was never about eating less. It was about the sequence, and the sequence cost you nothing. Consider a typical case of the kind documented in the diabetes literature. A 69-year-old woman with early type 2 diabetes whose after-meal blood sugars ran high no matter how carefully she counted her carbohydrates. Her doctor was preparing to add a second medication. She felt she was doing everything right and getting nowhere. Nothing about her food changed, and no portion was cut. She simply changed the order and the timing. She began each meal with her vegetables, ate her protein next, and left the bread and potato for last. She added a small boiled egg before her biggest meal and a 10-minute walk after it. And she kept taking every one of her medicines exactly as prescribed. Within a few weeks, her after-meal numbers had come down noticeably. Her doctor held off on the second medication and kept watching. Her afternoon energy crashes faded, and she felt steadier on her feet, and she no longer felt the heavy need to nap after every single lunch. And she had done it by rearranging her plate, not by emptying it. So here is exactly what to do, and there are only 5 steps. You can start at your very next meal tonight. Step 1. 10 minutes before a starchy meal, drink a glass of water with 1 tablespoon of vinegar or a big squeeze of lemon. Skip this one if you have reflux and always dilute it well. Step 2. About 10 minutes before your main meal, eat a small protein starter, such as one boiled egg or a handful of nuts. Keep it small, because it counts toward the meal. Step 3. At the meal, eat in order, vegetables first, then protein and fat, and starch or sweet things last. Leave a few minutes before you reach the starch because that gap does the most. This one change alone can cut the after-meal spike by around a third. Step 4. Stretch the meal to at least 20 minutes and put your fork down between bites. Step 5. Within 30 minutes of eating, take a gentle 10-minute walk, holding a rail if you need it. Think of someone in your life who is fighting their blood sugar, counting every carbohydrate, and feeling like nothing works. They may not need to eat less or give up the foods they love. They may simply need to change the order, and this video could hand them that. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 you are trying at your next meal. Your answers decide exactly what I cover next. And if you want the science that a 12-minute appointment never has room for, subscribe to this channel. That is the entire reason it exists. This video is education, not a diagnosis. Your own doctor knows your history, so bring this list to your next appointment. I'm Bennett Thorne. Don't forget to subscribe and live longer.